Now, a court in India recently ruled that the creators of WhatsApp groups can be held legally accountable for messages posted in the group. Could we see the same thing happening in South Africa? Simon Colman, the executive head of digital distribution at SHA Specialist Underwriters, joins us from our Cape Town studios to talk about this. Such an interesting topic, Simon. The message we're talking about more specifically centered on an insulting picture of the Indian Prime Minister, which was shared on WhatsApp. Could South African creators of WhatsApp groups with offensive comments be prosecuted similarly?
Well, we don't really know yet, Joanne. So, I mean, what we have seen, though, in recent times, as recent as December last year, we saw someone who'd posted something offensive on Facebook being ordered by the court to pay the injured party 350,000 rand. So we're seeing a lot more defamation and invasion of privacy-type actions arising out of social media use. This recent thing coming out of India, where the WhatsApp administrators are really having quite a lot of responsibility thrust upon them, we've probably got a way to go before we get to that. But I think what is interesting is a lot of South Africans don't realize that WhatsApp is a social media platform. You know, they look at it more as an instant private messaging service, and that in itself can lead to problems.
I was looking at a story that had slightly more serious repercussions here now, also happening in India, a story of mob justice resulting from a rumor about a group of dangerous kidnappers which spread like wildfire on WhatsApp. There were no kidnappers, but a group of men was actually killed over this. What does this tell users about discerning whether a message is authentic or not before forwarding it on?
I think that's really where, you know, we're seeing a global trend. You know, during the Trump campaign, we started hearing for the first time about this thing called fake news. And we've seen it in several other territories since then. So that example you just used, as dramatic as it is and tragic, I think that's really what regulators and authorities are trying to stop. That's why they're trying to make the administrators of WhatsApp and Facebook groups responsible, if not liable, for the content. You know, if something is evidently fake or offensive or it could cause harm, that's where the Indian court came in. Then the administrator has some kind of responsibility to try and regulate that. And it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, I'm sure you're on WhatsApp, I am, and most of the people I know are. But what you'll know is that it's impossible to delete something after you've posted it. So, you know, if it's accidental and you try and get it back, you can delete it from your own timeline, but not from the other person's, and certainly not from the group. Which means, in that case of the mob justice, you know, once the thing's been posted, the best that an administrator can do is to get the other party to either retract it or to delete them from the group. That's the extent of their powers, and I think that the courts in South Africa would have to take that into account when determining how far the liability goes.
How important is it for an administrator on this group, or perhaps even others within the group, to make it clear that they don't support these comments, or they are declaring these comments an example of fake news? How important is that declaration? Should it be taken further on a legal basis?
I think that is probably the most important thing, because you know, we're always applying the principle of reasonableness when we're looking at whether or not somebody is liable for something. And if all that an administrator can do to control the posts on a group is to warn people and delete them as users if they do post offensive content, then they must show that they've gone out of their way to do that. So when you're setting up a WhatsApp group, and you know, we shouldn't think about these things as having 2 or 3 members. I know of WhatsApp groups that have thousands of members. So it's really up to the admins, and possibly having more than one on a big group, to advise people as they join the group that this is the point of this group. We don't accept any offensive content, and if you do, it's likely that you're going to be deleted, and we'll obviously post a retraction following that. So that's really all that an administrator can do to distance themselves from the content in the group.
Some really important information coming out of that. Thank you so much for talking to us. Simon Colman, the Executive Head of Digital Distribution at SHA Specialist Underwriters.